it's time to get to the business.
You are listening to the Productive Inactivity Podcast with your host,
ladies and gentlemen,
Wayne Stephen.
People like this are a menace to decent society.
It's about to go down.
Yo, I swear I got 64 bars in my phone that I cannot wait to give somebody. Like, it's sitting there. I've been messing with it, revising it. Like, I'm telling you, when somebody catches these bars, like, I've considered so many times whether or not I should just, like, sit here and just record a EP. Like, I be getting the itch sometimes to just want to rap again. Like, people really don't understand that about, like, the creative aspect. Like, but anyways, I'm over here just talking. Yo, this is Wayne Stephen with the Productive Inactivity Podcast, Season 2. The reason I did it like that is because I didn't want to do the whole, because it doesn't matter to me how many total episodes that I have, like in the sense that, I'm on episode 100. Like, I don't see myself commemorating it like that. Like, if I do, whatever. But they're just different seasons in people's lives. Like, a lot has changed since I last podcasted. My just knowledge of things, not that it's increased, but like I just see things a little bit different. Like, me and my family moved to South Jersey from small town Pennsylvania, which changed my perspective on a lot of things, and it gave me, I had a time to have like a refreshing moments of, there's life outside of this, you know what I'm saying? So I just really enjoying the new season that I'm in life in general, and also just getting my creativity back, just feeling like, man, like I surrendered so much of my creativity to, me not liking where I lived at the time, and me being in a new place and seeing new things, not things that I haven't seen before, but new things as opposed to where I was before versus where I am now. So, welcome. Today's episode is gonna have to do with how we converse with one another as people. We do not do a good job at that. And let me explain what I mean. We always tackle every topic from the extremes. Hot, cold, left, right, black, white, front, back, right? But what we fail to consider is there's a whole demographic of people who really don't look at things that extreme. They kind of like hang out in the valley. And to me, that's where I like to converse. Most of my conversations take place in the valley. I don't like to talk to anybody who's too extreme to anything. I don't like to talk to anybody that's super duper die hard old school rap. I don't like to talk to anybody that's super duper die hard old school sports. I don't like to talk to anybody who it's their political party or nothing. Like, it's just, I can't converse with people like that because there's no convincing them that there's life outside the extremes. Now, in that valley, what you have is a lot of questions. And the thing about questions is people in extremes don't like to answer questions, because when people in extremes have to answer questions, sooner or later, one of those questions is going to make them question what they believe. Nobody likes to have what they believe questioned. Even myself, like just being a believer, being a Christian, somebody will ask me a question and it'll be really like the minutiae of the faith, like things like, things, tedious things from the Old Testament that realistically, I'm not that versed in the Old Testament outside of what draws you to the New Testament, but I'm not trying to make this, I just wanted to use the Bible as an example, and my being a believer as an example, and my being questioned about my faith as an example. So what I remember when I was young, like young in the faith, people would ask me questions about, well, how can you believe this if this is the case? And it would stump me a little bit. I mean, I would have an answer and it'd be a biblical answer, but you can't give a non-biblical person a biblical answer. So I've learned to say, wouldn't you like to be more sure? We all would. I guess we'll figure it out on Judgment Day. And then I keep it moving. But what the thing is, most people aren't satisfied with the I understand that perspective mindset. People like to beat other people down into submission so that they say, okay, you're right. And I was having a conversation with my mom earlier today. And I was like, man, like, I don't understand how people always want to beat people down into the okay, you're right mindset, when realistically, nobody really has to be right more than they desire to be understood. And outside of being understood, like right outside the door of being understood, is that conversation in the valley that leads to that understanding. But most people don't want to take that time. That's where we fail in our communications. And I don't want to blame it so much on the way that the world is. Like, oh, the way the world is now, everything is so microwave and has to be fast, blah, blah, blah. It's always been like that. It's been like that since I was a kid. It's just that it's a little bit more now that technology increases. When I was young, the first time I saw a microwave, I was like, oh, this is going to be great. You could cook so many things so fast. What I come to learn is the things you cook in the microwave don't have the same consistency as something that you would cook on a range top stove. And you don't get to add the seasonings, and you don't get to mix, and you don't get to see the texture. And that's the same thing with our communication. When you communicate in layers and you peel it back and you begin to ask people questions and why do you think this and what makes you feel that way? Now you're knowing somebody. There's a difference between acknowledging somebody's presence. There's a difference between knowing about someone and is knowing someone. Knowing someone is looking at them and going, I know why he's about to say this. I know why she's about to do this. I know why she says this when this happens. And that's where we fail, because it's like we don't want to take the time to know. What do you mean, know somebody? No, I want to formulate a snap judgment about somebody and then go with that because that's easier to do. That's ridiculous. Because the sad part about the fact that we do that, we don't want it done to us. We can't stand when people assume things about us. And we always say, that's not what I said. You didn't hear me right. The thing about that peeling back of the layers of communication, not only do we not have the patience to listen to somebody else about why they may be a certain way, we don't even have the time to peel back our own layers to truly understand why we say the things we say. Does that make sense? Like right now, people will say, I know myself, which is fine. You may be one of those self-aware people who knows themselves. But do you know why you do certain things? Do you know why you turn down the radio when you're lost? Do you know why, you always add the milk first when you're mixing up your mac and cheese? No, because you didn't take the time to understand where your learned behavior comes from. That can only happen in the valley because you're too busy being extreme with your I do it like this, and whoever doesn't do it like that is way over there. But there's people down here who want to understand more. Let me give you a topic that I'm certain everybody can relate to, and I'm gonna touch on this topic because it's relevant. It's relevant. So Republican, Democrat. Again, I'm not a political guy. I don't talk about politics more than I talk about what I see in politics because it's all a circus to me anyway. But you got Republican, Democrat, right? You got people choosing red or blue. It's just gang violence, but with white people involved. You got people choosing red and blue, right? And I asked my wife this morning, I said, did you ever wonder if there are any issues that both red and blue agree on where that discussion can take place? Because this is what happens. And I'm going to take that and I'm going to switch it to the relationship arguments. When you and your significant other are arguing, there's always one or two things that both of you have said that you can agree on that the other has done to bring you to the friction point. So like, I am a habitual spender and my wife hates it. Pardon the alarm. It's reminding me to take my medicine, but I'm not going to take it right now. Anyways, I'm a habitual frivolous spender. My wife hates it. I should hate it too. But when I click on eBay, I don't know why I even have the app on my phone, because I already know what I'm going to do. I'm going to sit there, I'm going to watch an auction, and I'm going to be like, oh, that Nike sweatsuit is hard. What, only $60 when it was $149? Buy now. I don't know why I'm like that. Yes, I do. Actually, it's crazy because I almost played the hypocrite. But I do know why I'm like that. Because when I was young, money was scarce, and then money wasn't scarce. So when money wasn't scarce, I just kept spending bread. But I don't want to lose myself or you in this point. When you're having those discussions, you can agree that you caused the friction at the beginning. Then what happens is you'll get a person to be like, you know what? When you did that, I didn't have to respond like this. Now you're agreeing on those one or two topics. By the end of it, you don't even know why you're arguing. That's the same thing with politics. If you find that one or two things that you agree on in the valley, because that's the only way you're going to have that happen. You're not going to go over there, or you're not going to go over there in the extreme sides and try to figure that out. You got to come to a meeting place, and that's with everything. And I don't think people want to come to the meeting place. Like, when did we decide that we were right and everybody else was wrong, and there's no chance of us being wrong? Do you know what happened? Too many special interest dissection groups that separate people by letters, gender, sex, race, sports teams, region, everything. We break ourselves down and separate ourselves. People like to blame it on the media, whatever. You can blame it on the media if you want, but that's you removing yourself as the responsible one for your own emotions and thoughts. Like, people will identify, and again, I get it. You want to identify with a thing, person, place, thing, region, race, sex. Everybody's identifiable. I get that. But when you take that identity and it disallows you from seeing or knowing anything else outside of that, and anything else outside of that has to be wrong? Seriously? How pretentious is that? Like, I was having a conversation. I talk to my mom a lot. I talk to her at least twice a week. I had a conversation with my mom about the do as I say, not as I do generation, right? I said, that is the worst parenting style ever. And she's like, what do you mean? I was like, how can I tell you as a parent not to curse while cursing at you? Well, you know, there's just some things that adults can do that kids can't. Agreeable. But shouldn't you want to be the example and teach your child certain coping skills? And she got quiet for a little bit, because it takes something for a parent to take advice or redirection from a child. I hold myself completely accountable to my daughter. And the reason I do it is so she doesn't think that I think of myself as above her. Now, I'm an authority figure, yes, but I'm not better than her. I'm not beyond reproach. None of those things. And I want her to understand that I understand that. So when we do discuss things, she still remains in a child's place. She understands that I'm dad, but she also knows that dad's not going to sit here and try to be right when he's obviously wrong. And that's important, because if you've ever gotten into an interaction with someone who's literally like straining at a gnat to be right in a situation where they're obviously wrong, you know how frustrating that is. That's where we are in our world, because nobody ever says anything wrong. They just didn't mean it how they said it. And that's just the abruptness of people these days. They don't take the time. Like, you know who my favorite people to listen to talk is? Like older people from like the World War II era. They understand the value of taking your time and speaking. Now, granted, a lot of them, both black and white, still hold on to a lot of those things that separated us during those times. But when they speak, they're very concise, and they make sure you understand what it is that they're saying. That's where we need to improve for this generation. It has nothing to do with the fact that we have phones in our hands all the time. It has nothing to do with the fact that we can binge watch television whenever we choose. It has nothing to do with social media and how everything is more easily accessible. It has to do with the fact that we don't take the time to enunciate and let ourselves be understood. Now, here's the thing that I know. I know when I did that, there was at least 3 or 4 people who were like, why are you talking so slow? When did we get to the point where I needed to talk fast? Because if I talk fast and you don't understand me, then all of a sudden it's like, oh, I didn't understand what you said. I'm like, how can you understand what I said when I know I said it clearly? I know I spoke I know I was very accurate in my speaking. I know I accentuated everything. You see what I'm saying? Like if I rushed through and I hit you with the New York style like I was on the block, then you'd be mad that I was talking too fast. There's always a happy medium. That's where we need to live. We need to live in the happy medium. And I don't think we spend any time at all doing that. Basically, this was just a springboard for what's going forward. For people who are unfamiliar with me, whether this is the first time you've listened to me or whether this is the last time you're going to listen to me, I just wanted people to be familiar with who I was. So that's all I got for y'all today. This is Wayne Stephen with the Productive Inactivity Podcast. You can find me on Instagram. Yo, you can find me on Instagram at Productive Inactivity Podcast. You can find me on Twitter at Productive Inactivity Podcast. Facebook, same thing. You know what I'm saying? Instagram. Yo, I could do it. Not only do I have 64 bars in my phone and I'm about to hit somebody upside their melon with, but if you want to have a singing contest, I'm with it. I'm with the business. Who want what with it? Yeah. Yo, I'm wildin'. Yo, Wayne Stephen, Productive Inactivity Podcast. Yes, sir.